Good morning. Welcome.
Good
Well,
morning, good afternoon.
good afternoon, evening. Welcome to Spiritual Yada. I'm iLan Azoulai.
I'm Penelope Jean Hayes, and we like to talk about
Yes.
everything that matters, everything spiritual, and all things that matter to us and our soul and our soul's journey. And we're finding out that Elon and I can just pick a topic, pick a phrase, pick a word, and
Mhm.
just yada, yada, yada
And
about
Yada on
just
it.
about anything. And it's all
Exactly.
meaningful conversation. So let's have at it. Did you
Okay.
have something to kick us off this morning or this afternoon?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. It's funny because we didn't record before, but um, I was going on last week's topic that we were talking about. And we're talking about happiness and wonder as children, as far as
Yes.
wondrous. And the word that came to me today that is tied into everything, but tied into another word. The first word is judgment, and judgment that is tied into communication, because lack of communication will lead to judgment. But I want to talk about the space of being in judgment, and it could be positive and it could be negative. Usually, we associate judgment with negativity, right? But and it's how we look at ourselves. It's how we look at ourselves, how we talk to ourselves. And that is, it's not about only judging other people. And I'll give you an example. Something that we're looking, if I'm looking something that happened 10 years ago, or how I was in a relationship 5 years ago, 10 years ago, right? Most of the time, many times, if we're unaware, what we'll tend to do is to judge ourselves and says, "Oh, I was a I was an idiot. How could I do? How could I have done that? How could I have done this? How could I have done? How did not I see that? Or if I would only have done this, I could have done that better and done ta 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 ta, and yada yada yada. Right?
Yeah.
Could have gone. But here's the thing: the only reason we're judging ourselves and we're not doing service to ourselves is because we're looking at 5, 10 years ago with the eyes of today. And with the eyes of today, after the journey that we've went through, and I know I can talk about myself, talk about clients, after the journey that we've went through, we have a different understanding, we have a different perspective, and a
Oh
different
yeah, they say
perspective.
hindsight is 2020.
Exactly. So when this is happening, especially when we start our journey, and when I mean by starting our journey, it's so when we become aware, we start to become aware and conscious of what we're doing or where we're at. It is to go back to bring ourselves to the times that we were before, to the place that I inhabited before, and to look at that time with the eyes of back then, what I had then. And this is what it means: be good to yourself. When we talk about be good to yourself, when we go about show compassion to yourself, show compassion to myself in the journey, so I can create a love to your neighbor as you love to yourself, right?
Hmm.
And so there is this place of judgment that is very easy to fall into, especially in place of sadness or going through, and now we're going through difficult times because all the worlds are colliding, all the worlds, all the realizations, all the thoughts, people are coming, they're all colliding together, coming like a bottleneck, and everybody's trying to squeeze in to get in first. And so this is kind of, and it led into a whole other things, and it led
Hmm.
into communication. How many times without communication, um, we sometimes we're afraid to communicate. We're afraid to communicate to somebody is close to us because we are afraid of judgment. We're afraid of being
From
judged
them.
from them. So there is our
This is
judgment.
true.
There is our
Yes, I'm
judgment,
thinking
right?
of something.
Right. So there is our judgment on our part to ourselves, and then there is we're afraid to communicate to our partner, to our somebody, because we think that that person will respond similarly to what somebody else responded in our past, and then we
Maybe
don't
that
say
same
something.
person
I'm sorry.
could even be the same
Could be the
person, how
same
they
person.
responded in the past.
Exactly. You were thinking of something. So that is something that kind of, it comes up every so often, especially this week, especially because of things that are happening this
Did
week.
you
And
have a particular situation that sparked that?
um, Well, I had a certain situation that sparked that because of something that came to me that had to do with my past, where I was in a particular relationship that was a long relationship, and that I bumped it. I bumped it because I didn't see things in certain ways, and I didn't realize things in certain ways, and I didn't realize my place, so I couldn't even see the other person's place. I couldn't see myself. So, and it was those things that something that happened yesterday that that just triggered that. It just reminded me of that. It's like almost like a deja vu.
Yes.
And then I catch myself and I said, aha, you know, and that comes, and that, and the reason I'm stumbling on that is because the issue is tied somewhat into that word, but it's a derivative of this word. It's a birth from that word. It's a birth from the word of judgment, and from the word of judgment. In that case, there was some kind of a self jealousy, like a
A
jealousy
self
of.
jealousy. Well, that you're going to have to explain. Self jealousy.
Well, here's the thing. You remember last week we were talking about wonder,
Self jealousy. Yeah.
right? Wonder as kids,
Yes.
or
The
kids that,
wonderment of seeing the world through a child's eyes.
yeah, yeah, not just through a keyhole.
Yeah.
You know,
It's everything's new and fresh again.
everything is possible.
Yes, that's true.
Everything is possible, and this is how I remember. I remember myself in certain situations in regards to certain achievements, in regards to certain things that are happening. That me as a youngster or a teenager or early years, that there was no fear, was not a concept. You know, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. I think you know what I'm
Yeah,
talking
I
about.
do.
I actually know that you know what you're talking about. Fear is not a concept because it is something else that needs to be dealt with. It's not something that is internalized. And so sometimes I look and I say, you know, that that spirit, So, also there's another thing. So looking at myself back then, with the eyes of back then, can actually give a very strong inspiration to the eyes of today.
Yes, we have a lot
You
of
know.
things to talk about here.
So there you go. I mean,
You've
I think
opened up
I've.
you've opened up a lot of things, and I'm going to need some specific examples out of you.
Okay.
So looking at, I mean, I look at when you talk about judging yourself, your former
Mm-hmm,
self from
mm-hmm,
10 years ago, I think we all do that.
mm-hmm,
And to give you particular examples, I can think of times when I was in my 20s and I don't even recognize that person now.
mm-hmm.
How I behaved then, um, the things that I'm interested in now are very different. Things have evolved. So sometimes it's cringeworthy when you can think back at a certain situation or a certain conversation or a relationship and how we behaved in the relationship. However, I do think that there's a self-preservation mechanism embedded in this self-judgment, in that oftentimes when I have that moment of reflection of that former self,
Mm-hmm.
it allows me to say, I don't want to be like that now. And so there's something about that. You use the word judgment, but it's almost like it's a warning mechanism. It's like this alarm going off saying, like, don't be that person again. Don't make that same mistake again. Don't behave like that again. Don't
Mm-hmm.
revert back to that
Mm-hmm.
again. And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't even have to be 10 years ago, it could be 1 year
Yeah, for
ago.
sure. Yeah, yeah. Just
So maybe there's something inherent in judgment, self judgment, that is a positive, like a warning, warning system.
well, if you're coming from yeah, a warning system. But the warning, where is the warning coming from? I mean, if you are, if you tell yourself, you know what, I don't want to be that, I don't want to be that, I don't want to be that. Uh, how does it affect where you are today? Does that?
Well, I mean, I think it's so cringeworthy to think about a particular situation of how we may have behaved or a conversation that we had or whatever that was, that it's repelling to your own self the way that we were or behaved then. So reminds us that I don't want to be that person anymore. I'm not that person.
Mm.
You know, I so distance myself from that person, and we are different people, I think, at
Hmm.
different stages of our life. I mean, I am not the same person I was when I ran away from home at 15 years old. Um, in a lot of ways, I am. And a
But you
lot
have
of things
this
I,
core. You have your core in there. The core
oh,
never changes.
well, no, I mean, the core never changes, but so many aspects of the journey shapes
Yeah.
the soul. The
Hmm.
core is shaped by the journey, and an awareness and an enlightenment is picked up along the way as well. Yeah, but I think back to that person that I was, that girl that I was at 15 or at 25, whatever year I want to reflect on. And there's so much about her that I also love. There's so much. I was very tenacious. I love this the spirit that I had then and that I still have, to
Hmm.
know myself, to be confident in myself is something I've always had from a young age and maintained. So there are those things about her, that person, that former person, that I still admire, and I think, man, you survived. And sometimes I don't know how I survived.
Yeah.
So it's a love-hate relationship, I think, with our past and our mistakes even.
But that's what I was talking about. That's what I was talking about when the self jealousy.
What is self-jealousy?
It's like it's not like it is what you were talking. You're giving two sides of yourself now, right? You're saying the part that you don't want to be. I don't want to be that person because there are things there that, like I've shared, things that you've seen in yourself that do not serve you, and so you don't want them. You don't want
Hmm.
these aspects. But then on the other hand, you like your tenaciousnessy, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
tenacity. Yeah.
yeah, well, I know, but that too.
And
and
willpower and
and
strength
willpower,
and
and
yeah.
exactly. um I felt at some point, because of the place that I was in back in Boston and everything, that some of that was muffled by what I was going through, by what I was going through and what I was
Always.
going through in the journey and everything. So it muffled because the shadows came up and things came up that created this confusion. So those were the jealousy, and the jealousy is it's a whole different term, but it's for that, to miss that part in you, to miss that part in you. So if you're talking about
Oh,
to miss that part of you, to miss that person that you've
what
been.
part do you miss? I need to know this. I need to understand the context.
For
What
example,
part about yourself do you miss?
well, today it's more in concert than it used to be, but there are some aspect of that the fearless belief that everything is possible, right?
Okay, now we're getting back to the wonderment of a child.
Well, but it is that self um, jealousy of, and I don't know if jealousy is the right word, but that's what came to me. That's what it felt like. That's what it
I
felt
like the
like.
term. I think
You
I
know.
think you're onto something there. I think it's interesting. Um,
So
when
so
you're
it's a remembering myself in a certain time. I was like, you
Mhm.
know what? I envy that guy. He was
Yeah,
fearless. I mean, if I tell you stories of what stuff in Israel, I mean, you, you
I
know,
want to, but I want to hear them all. Eventually,
oh
we'll get
well,
to all. Yeah,
we'll get to them. I mean, but
we're
I
gonna
tell you
unpack
stuff
those
like
stories.
stuff that will not put down a anyway, like somebody was all kind of things. But it's just like those kind of things that come from really being fearless, or it could have been also being blocked, that I've been blocked, and that's why
Yeah.
I was able to
just
accomplish what I accomplished because I was blocked to my, people that are more
yes, if you can't
sensitive.
see the road ahead, you don't know if there's a pitfall there.
So you just go.
You're just, driving along and you have no fear.
So you just go. It's like when I started the documentary, right? If I knew then what I know today, probably I wouldn't make it. Probably I
If
wouldn't
you knew how
start
much
it.
work it was going to be, how comprehensive the project
The
is.
comprehensive and the toll that it took
Oh,
emotionally
I
and
can only
spiritually,
imagine.
you know, I
Yeah, I
probably wouldn't have
do. I
started it,
do.
so
Yes. Well,
sometimes it's,
I am interested to know, I'll tell you, my own insight of that moment, but I'm interested to know, what is it of you that you missed? Did you already describe it enough by saying that fearlessness of not knowing the road ahead, you jump in with a project, or is there, more to that description?
well, there is always more because I can talk until I'm blue in the face and I don't get blue in the face, so there are many things, there are many kind of details that go into to the story, but I think that we can switch off, kind of like
Yes.
dance
Yeah,
around this,
yes, it's
and
it's interesting. Well, I think when you're talking about this, I'm thinking of something probably completely different, but
hmm
it is reminding me, I miss about my younger self and my single self. Before I was
hmm
married, there was a different self too.
hmm
And now, look, nothing is, I would trade nothing for what I have today. And I think that it took this many years and this journey to finally have this. Oh my goodness, the life that I have now is fantastic and
hmm
so different
hmm
than the instability that I had for so many years. And I now, and this is actually going to go into, this would be a nice segue eventually into the topic that I have here, but
great,
the,
great.
because it's funny how it's coming that way. But for me, I have stability that I didn't
hmm
have my entire life. Not when
oh
I was a young child, not when I was a runaway at 15, not in the many years that I was living on my own and, doing this life on my own. I would always say, I'm just so tired of doing life alone. Like it was such a struggle and such a instability for so many years that I always just wanted home. I wanted a home. I wanted the place, even the place in
mm,
one's heart that is
mm,
called home.
yeah,
And that's actually my topic, so we'll get there. But
uh-huh.
um, I wanted that person, that soulmate, and lo and behold, that person to share your life with, that companionship for me has, brought all of the stability and the place called home and all of
mm,
those things. However, however, to your point, in terms of just the things that I miss, which are not things that are necessarily things that I have to miss forever. You can have moments and tastes of these things in life. But I miss when I was single before I was married, my friends and I would go out to the bars and we would go out to dance clubs and
hmm
we would dance. We would dance all night. And I miss that about myself. You just don't do that anymore. I think you
why
get to
not?
a certain age.
Why
Well,
why
maybe
not?
well, right now, because of
Oh well,
coronavirus,
right
everything is
now something
closed.
else, but
But I do enjoy every now and again going to, we have a pretty fun club here, dance club. And I just love it. I mean, it just brings me right back to, certainly, 15 years ago
uh-huh.
of that. And that person in so many ways was a different person
For
than
sure.
the person I am today. So much has changed in this period of time, but I do miss that. And so that we just moved into a new house 2 weeks ago
Yes.
now, and it was, I think, maybe on our second or third night here. It might have even been like the second night in our new house. We had some things set up in the house, and one of the first things my husband did was set up one of our large televisions that has this like incredible sound system, and we poured ourselves a drink and we had this impromptu dance party,
That's
just like kind
cool.
of not planned, but just this dance party. And we were dancing, like literally cutting a rug on our tile floor in we actually have a room that's like a bar, it's a lounge, and we just had a blast. And to me, that was like good enough. That was that shot of what I had missed about myself. Like there's just no time for so many of the things that I used to have endless time for. Do you remember? I don't know if you're the same, but I talked to a lot of people about this, and they say we used to go out at 11 o'clock at night. That's when our night would start. We would go out at 11 o'clock
Yeah,
at night.
I remember
Now
those
I'm
times.
sleeping by 9. So yeah, I miss that. And I'm jealous of that girl in some ways, but I couldn't trade. I wouldn't trade with her. I would never trade.
But you
That
still
girl
could
was
do that
also sad and
sometimes.
lonely.
Well, you could, but probably, well, the lifestyle is different. The question is, what do you miss in it? Do you miss the actual going? What do you miss? Because it obviously gave you a certain feeling.
Yes.
So, do you miss the
Um,
feeling or do you miss the actual going out?
um, I miss the music and the dancing.
And just the energy and the people outside and everything. It's just a whole thing,
Um, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like a different world that, I had been that person for so long as a single person in a group of single girlfriends. There is a lot of that. And this life is, very different to that life. So
Hmm.
there are times, not very often, but every now and again, like, oh, that was so much fun. But nothing about that life other than that was fun. This
Do you
life here
try and
is
do
so
it
much
again?
better.
Do you try it
What's
and
that?
do it again? Do you like call your girlfriend or one of your girlfriends or something? And but I don't know, maybe they're not single, but nevertheless, you call your girlfriend and say, you know what? Let's have one of these girl nights out. Just like
And it doesn't
your,
even have to be out because it's truly not it for me. It wouldn't even be necessarily about the energy of many people in one place, and it's not about attention from men or anything like that. I could do that in our house. We had just a few friends come over.
there you go.
Anyway, good conversation. I think yours was much deeper than mine, but it did
No, it's
it
no, it
did
is.
make me think of that.
It's
you know
actually very deep. We can go very deep on your top on your thing on your. Well, by the way, what was your word? Home.
Okay, so my word is, it's more of a concept than a word, where we live and why. So let me just lay out the concept and see
It's in
what
your
you have to
book. It's
say
in your
about
book.
this. Sorry?
It's in your book.
Well,
Viral
I have
energy.
another book coming out that has a similar title. That's Where Your Dreams Live. But this is the idea of, and that's more, purely metaphysical, where your dreams lived in an energetic layer. So this idea is that where you and I grew up are different to where we live now. So
Mm-hmm.
we both come from other countries and we both
Yeah.
currently live in the United States. I'm a
Yes.
naturalized American citizen now. I don't know if you are or
I'm a
not.
citizen. Yeah.
We're
So
both
yeah.
American citizens now, but we both come from other countries. And I just wanted to chat about the idea of like, why did you leave your country of
Oh,
birth and country of origin? And because I know what my reasons
that's
are.
great. Yeah.
And to me, it's like it's a theme. I'll use one of the fantastic iLan Azoulai metaphors. So I think about birds back in my hometown, which wasn't, in my opinion, a beautiful town. It was a town bordering Detroit,
Uh-huh.
Michigan.
Oh,
So it's an
yeah.
automotive town.
Yeah.
Canada is where I'm from. Canada's beautiful. The town in which I came from has a lot of beautiful areas, and it also has a lot of industrial areas. And
Mm-hmm.
so I remember as a young person thinking, like, why don't we just move? Like, why does my family have me here? Why do we live in this place that is so drab and gray and ugly and cold in the winter, which I hate cold? Why are we here? And you would hear the people locally, like, the people that I'm not going to name the town, but everyone had the same opinion. It was like nobody was a big fan of the town that we lived in. Simultaneously, they're proud of it, and for many reasons. But there's also this underlying, you know, um, kind of jabbing at our own town for its
Mm.
faults.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would look at the birds. This is where the metaphor comes in, and I would think, like,
Mm.
why don't you just fly somewhere else? Like, you don't have to live in this polluted place. We would have the pollution come over from Detroit. So there's a place in Detroit where it has a lot of factories on an island. It's called Zug Island. And the air pollution would just come right across, obviously, across the border and
Wow.
right into this town that I grew up in. And we have the highest cancer rates in all of Canada in
Yeah.
this town.
Wow. Wow,
And
wow.
so it's just a place where you can't deny it's the downfalls for living there. And I would look at the birds and think like, why are you here? Why don't you fly, just a couple hours somewhere else where it's more beautiful, where it's nice? I mean, if I was a bird, I would fly where I live now. I mean, look, I did it. I literally flew as far as I
Hmm.
could at the most southerly tip. I'm literally, Elon, can you imagine? I'm at the most southerly tip of the United States. That's where I
Yeah.
live.
From the other side, for the other tip.
From the other tip,
Yeah.
I'm at the very
How
bottom
many
of
miles
Florida.
is like 5,000 miles, 4,000 miles,
3,000, I believe.
3,000
I
miles.
believe it's three from
Wow.
north to south. And so I did that. Look at that. All those years later. Well, it took me a long time. It took a lot of guts. It took a lot of
Yeah, for sure.
bravery. It's a hard thing to do. My father would call that the golden handcuffs, that he would say that we were in that town because my sister had kids, and these were the golden handcuffs that kept them, they have to be where the grandchildren are. So you stay. And so I wondered, do the birds also have the golden handcuffs? Do the birds, well, we know they do have family groups. And is that why they're there? You
It's
build the
interesting.
same homes, you build the same lives, you have the same relatives, the same networks. So the birds must have that as
So
well.
what's common to all this? You know where you are. So the place that you know is better than the place that you don't know. That's many times really what it is. I mean, maybe it's something different, but it feels like,
I think fear,
you know,
I've talked to a lot of people,
the
people that
fear of
still
the
live in that
unknown,
town and
right?
people who have left. I know a lot of people have left that town. But it's not just this town, to pick on this town. I mean, you were from a different place as well. So I want to,
Yeah,
unpack all of that. So I know why I left.
yeah.
And it's not just, the beauty or the lack of, clean air. It was, in addition to that, the opportunities. So I really did see, and America has proven to me to in fact be this land of opportunity. It has been for me. Greater population than Canada. So these are
Hmm.
just, mathematical numbers that
Yeah,
can't be denied. So there was a lot of reasons for me. So
yeah.
that's my premise. And I
Okay.
want to hear what you have to say about it. Let's chat. But why did you leave? Tell us
Well,
about where you came
um,
from and why you left.
well, first of all, the golden handcuffs that you're talking about from your father are actually, if you remember, it's actually the same thing like my film Holy Ghetto.
Yes.
It's the same thing.
And I wondered that when I watched your film, Holy
It's ho-
Ghetto,
because,
the same thought crossed my mind. Like, why don't they just leave?
well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Well, it's hard for the people there in the red light district. It's hard because that's really the last place before the grave, really, to be quite frank with you. So, but here's the thing: we're born into a story. We're born into this place. I was born into that, and this will tie into the reason why I
Okay, well, tell everybody where you're from.
So I'm from Israel. I'm from Tel Aviv, and I grew up. My parents, the age of when I was 14, my parents became ultra Orthodox religious. So I went from a kind of not a really completely secular, but what we call traditionalists, right? So we'd follow the
Mhm.
tradition, but then we would, we'd go to the beach on Shabbat and do all the kind of things. But then, so then to go overnight to a regiment, to a religious um, regimen, right? And that means the prayers. That means that a lot of things are forbidden and all these kind of things. So I was at 14, almost 14, and just before, I didn't even start getting a grasp on who I am or any kind of grasp about myself. Then it had to change again. So so I was there, and my dad was the chief of police of Tel Aviv at that time, and so I grew up in,
Wow.
yeah.
That's a huge city to be the chief of police of.
Yeah, at that time at that time they were more sectionized. So there were more different sections. So there was, but the area of Tel Aviv was around that particular area of southern Tel Aviv and middle Tel Aviv. So he was the
Mhm.
chief of police there, and so so my reason for leaving actually, I didn't really I didn't about think about leaving, although I fantasized about that. I fantasized about America. And the only thing I knew about America was New York and LA or whatever I saw in the movies and, Starsky and Hutch and all these kind of things. And, and Hollywood and all this you see only in the movies, right? Now I see it. Now it's across from here.
Yeah, because you're there, and I mean, I know where you are in LA, but you're in the LA area.
Yeah. So the golden cuffs or handcuffs or the holy ghetto is the same thing. I grew up in that thing. I didn't really enjoy much of my early years. I really didn't see that for me as a joyous experience. I mean, there were joyous moments, but it wasn't a joyous experience. And so for me, when I met my first wife in Israel, that was because I didn't want to do anything with religion. I didn't want to do anything with Judaism and with religion and anything because it was shoved down my throat, right? So I didn't want to do anything with that. So I joined Messianic Judaism, right? So it was like Jews for Jesus kind of thing. Okay, so I was in that. So that's where I met my first wife, and then she was American. She still is American, um, and 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 from there the things were easy for me. I didn't really think about moving to the States because I had my music career just starting over there. I went to music school over there, and just things were starting to go. But the the idea that there is a possibility that I can go and come back, because I wanted to go and come back. I wanted to go do something with music, da 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 da, come back. Then the first time I came back was 3 years later, in a completely different
Wow.
story,
So you didn't see your family for three
for three
years?
years, for 3 years. So I intentionalized, we went to, kind of get married here because of family and stuff like that, her family. And materialism got the best out of me, right? So in Israel, where things were very difficult, and the only thing I had to my name was a guitar, was so you come here and you work and you can get a house and you can get a car and you can get another car. So things start. I was um,
Well, you can get ahead more in America than in Israel. Is that what you're saying? That
yes, but yes, at that time at least. Now, especially also because of the situation. But now Israel is very cosmopolitan. It's combination of both Europe and America in one place. It's like a melting pot for all. But that's today. At that time, it was a little bit more difficult. And so here's the thing where I didn't like the place, but I didn't think about leaving initially, right? I would change the plate that I would eat. I mean, I would keep the same dish, but I would keep the same plate, but I would change the food. That was the kind. I changed one religion with the other, right? Because I thought I would be, more accepted here or more seen, and seen.
Mhm.
I've been seen, I've been accepted, I've been all these kind of things, or so I thought. But it was just as we say in Hebrew, same woman in a different dress, or same plate, different dish, right? It's the same size plate. You're holding the same thing, and that's what happened. And so there, while it is so difficult, although I'm born into these stories, we're born into these stories, it is so difficult. It becomes our ghetto. It's like our ghetto. It's we're confined in it unless we actually break from it. But it's very hard to break away because we know what we know, and what we know is very comforting, regardless of the difficulty is. Regardless how much difficult it is, it can be very comforting because we know it rather than what we don't know. And so that's our ghetto. And we don't want, and although it doesn't matter how much it's hard, it's very holy. It's our parents. What would they say? How are they going to talk about this? Who is going to say what? And we're concerned many times with what other people say. And for many years, I would be concerned with what others would say, you
That
know,
you left, what
that
they
I
would say.
left, or about, or about the fact that I joined that club, that movement of Jews
Yeah,
for
that's
Jesus,
big.
right? But
Hmm.
but actually, in retrospect, I did it because they would say something different, because I wanted to break out of this confinement. So in
Mm.
order to break out of this confinement, I have to do certain things extreme.
Hmm.
I have to do
Send a
extreme things.
message.
it was more extreme for me. It's like extreme to see how far can I push to see what happens. Oh, well, it's like, what's the worst that can happen, right? And then when I see that, oh, then why am I not doing it? Okay, I'm going to do it. It's that kind of thing. And so I didn't leave. So I left kind of because I met my first wife at that time, and it was like an outing, and then when I got here, when I got now get this, I got from Tel Aviv, I got to Kansas City. So it's not LA. it's even it's even worse than quarter of Tel Aviv, right? It's like it's like an Israeli to be in Kansas City for 7 years. It's it's been quite a journey. It's been quite a journey. And so for me in the beginning, it was a little bit nice to have this knowing, this stability, kind of this
But you came
monotonous.
with somebody. So your wife was American, but you met her in Israel,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
And then together, the two of you came to America. Yeah,
Yes.
I would think it takes the edge off when you're doing it with somebody who
Yes.
is already
Yes. Yeah.
American. I mean, she
Yeah.
knows like the lay of the land a little bit.
Yeah.
Still nothing easy about it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
quite.
It wasn't. It was. I had no problem as far as moving a place. Like it excites me to travel. It excites me to go around places. It was just this the place that I came from the concept of a family, from the concept of that family, from the concept of the environment, our environment. We talked about it. You said, it's like our environment is really we are product of our environments, right? So
Mhm.
where we grow up and what we say, and suddenly there is no support. And also I didn't have a good relationship with my parents at that time, so I was 23, 24, something like that. So it was kind of easy because I didn't have a good relation, so it was kind of easy to do that. But then the signs start hitting, and yet I didn't want to go back, though
Mhm.
I missed the lifestyle and the way of life.
What? Yeah, and I'm just curious, what lifestyle did you miss from Israel? What were the main things to miss?
Well, I was in music school, and so I start playing music. I would write. I would hang out with, I would be with a lot of people. I'd be a lot in the studio and recording and doing music and beach, a lot of the beach. So that was, Kansas. There is no beach.
Yeah, it's a good thing you went to California.
Well, that was years later. California, I'm only here for 4.5 years. That's it.
Hmm.
I've been in Boston for 14 years, and I love Boston. Love Boston, and there is an ocean there, the Atlantic,
Yeah, great town.
and so you're talking about you being a renegade, and running. I've also, when I was 15 or something, there were a lot of things that I was out of the house and got out of the house, um, to creating. Let me ask you this: when you ran away, when you ran,
So
were
back when I was 15, yeah.
yes, back when you were 15, were you chased after? Meaning, like, did your parents look after you, come after you, try to get you back, try to
Oh
come back?
no.
They just said, you
No.
know what, you want to go, go.
No, yeah. Well, not really either one of those. So
Okay.
it sounds like my family is quite different to your family. My
Mhm.
family, I would describe as, so you seem to describe, unless I misunderstood, a family that was very interested in what you did. So if you made the wrong choice or went to America or whatever, there was maybe some judgment, some talk,
Yes.
they
Yeah.
were very interested in what you were doing. My family, not as interested in what I, did then or even still do now.
Mm.
So I have a
Mm.
very good family and yet just very different. I always admired those. I mean, I just imagine these like European families, and I knew a lot of Italian people growing up and girlfriends that had these big Italian families, and everybody's so close and they're so, interested in what their daughter's doing. And I just, would say to myself, like, wow, like I just can't imagine. Like I just cannot
Mm.
imagine what that would, be
How
like.
would that feel like?
or to have a sibling. I have one sibling, but to have a sibling that, you could call and talk to, and like a closeness of someone who would get your back and someone who loved you. I didn't have that.
Mm,
So
mm,
it still is just so curious to me when I hear about, these big families. Often, I just imagine, like, I can imagine your Israeli family and everybody's just, this extended family and relatives, and they're so interested in what Elon's doing. And I think that's beautiful. We
well, not
always look at,
everybody, but but
not everybody.
it's kind of a culture thing.
Yes, I
It's a
know it's a
culture thing.
cultural thing,
Yeah.
and so I didn't have that culture in my family. So, um, it yeah,
So you
no,
run away.
nobody
Yeah,
came after me as
I
such.
see.
So, the very first time, um, it started off like really simple things and just kind of snowballed out of control.
Mm,
So, it was really simple, kind of odd things. We had moved kind of every 2 years, we would move.
mm,
And that happened 3 times. But at that age, formative years,
yeah,
2 years and then 3 years and 2 years. Now, all of a sudden, I was 15 years old. We had just moved back to our hometown. So we
I
had
see.
moved towns, not houses, but towns. We moved to, one place, another town, then we moved to another town. And eventually we moved back
So you moved
home.
back at 15, and when did you leave first, that home?
Well, no, this happened before 15, that we as a family had moved around. So when we got to our back to our hometown, and
Yeah,
I was 14 going on 15, this is where the problem started. So I just didn't feel that I had any real roots, whether within my family. Both of my parents were entrepreneurs. They were both very
mm.
busy with their businesses. Um, just, very interested in what they were doing with their businesses,
So you were
being
number,
successful at that.
so you were not number one?
No, not at all.
Mm,
And nor did I ever have any desire to, looking for attention wasn't the thing. It just wasn't, a problem. No, we had moved around. When we moved back to our hometown, my parents put my cat to sleep, and that's how it
mm,
started.
mm,
So I had lost the cat that I had since I was 4 years old. And this was, losing my best friend in a lot of ways. And I didn't think it should have happened. They euthanized the cat, and I just didn't think it was necessary. I didn't think it was time. I fought for this, for the life of my beloved cat. And I then felt very like I couldn't trust
mm,
them
mm,
anymore, that they did
mm,
this. I mean, it was
mm,
just, to me, it might as well have been a person. This was
mm,
my companion. So
mm,
that was just the start of it, and kind of one
yeah.
thing led to the next. And it was just one day, and we were in a fight, my parents and myself, and
Mm,
it was just, I'm leaving. Okay, leave. It was just
mm,
that simple. And the first time,
wow.
I just went to a friend's house and slept on the couch. And then, I don't remember the exact sequence of events, but it might have been a week later, came back home, and then another fight erupts. And then this time it's my dad saying, get out of our house. And so,
Mm,
okay, I grab a black garbage bag, stuff all my clothes and belongings, and there I go again, off to someone's house. Well, I didn't know a lot of people because we hadn't lived in this town for many years. And so before you knew it, then the next time I left, I was at someone's house that I didn't even know was a friend of a friend. And that's kind of how it was, like, just this kind of being
mm,
like lost in the equation
yeah,
sort of thing.
yeah.
So nobody begged for me to come back home. My parents did try hard. They tried to have family counseling, different things, but it wasn't necessarily their forte. And I think in retrospect, it just, it had to go down the way that it did. Being able
Exactly.
to have that separation from my family has given me a lot of freedom,
Hmm.
to then many years later leave Canada and come to the United States. Like, I didn't have the close bond that you speak of, and nobody tried to stop me or advise me. I do think that they thought I would fail and have to come back, and that didn't happen. But no, it wasn't. I didn't have any golden handcuffs. I think I was, and only until recent years, moved out of that. But for many years, many years, I didn't want the golden handcuffs for this
Mm,
exact reason. I wanted to have the, autonomy. I wanted to be able to fly away if I needed to. If at any moment I wanted to leave that town or this relationship
Mm-hmm.
with family or with a boyfriend at the time, I was stuck in that pattern for many years, that I felt that I was better to be able to, cut loose at any time and leave if I want to.
Mm.
So I think that, any of the things that we go through in our younger years are, very, they form these patterns. So it was only many years later, after many relationships, and I met my husband, that changed. That I was finally okay with, um, you know, committing to someone and putting down roots.
Mm-hmm.
So it just always is so interesting to me to hear people's stories about where they came from, and people that
Mm.
are still in a place that they want to leave. A lot of people have dreams of, maybe they want to live by the ocean, they want to live by the beach,
Yeah.
or they don't like the town that they're in. And I wish for them to have, whether it's the courage or the circumstances or both, to be able to make that move, rather than, what, you're just going to be 60 years old and still wishing that you had, made that move. And
Mm-hmm.
I do think that there's different energies in different towns for different people. My energy did not suit the energy of the town that I was born and raised
Yeah.
in. It just didn't. It's
Yeah.
not my place. It's just
Yeah, I
not my
hear you.
place.
I totally hear you. It's interesting. It's interesting, and like you said, this is really what you needed. This is your box of crayons. You needed to go through this separation to
Yes.
learn what you need to learn at this part of your journey, and the only way you could learn it is like that. And you knew that. You knew that before you came here. You knew that. We all knew
Yeah,
that.
so many blessings in disguise. But I have to bring it back to Holy Ghetto, your documentary, because I thought it at the time when I watched, and I still am not satisfied with this answer. And that is, why don't they just leave? And before you answer, let me set it up for you, because in many ways, I was kind of that person. You look at, for those listening who don't know ilan's documentary, you haven't seen it yet. Of course, it probably
Yeah,
hasn't been
it's not
hasn't been released, but
it
I
hasn't
was
been
able to
released yet.
see an early. So the premise is, well, you tell the premise, the short version of the premise, and then I want to talk about why they don't just leave.
Well, the film tells the story of three different people that from different parts of the world, that despite their dreams and aspiration as children to be an astronaut or an actor or a football player, they all ended up inhabiting the red light district of Tel Aviv. And Olga, she was kidnapped when she was 17 years old from Russia to Israel for sex trafficking. Dave is an American who moved to Israel, to the red light district, to open a shelter for the homeless women in prostitution. And Ohad is an Israeli who's an ex-trafficker of women who seeks redemption. So together they create this fabric, this human fabric, and this drama, really, about their life. Can they rise above what society reduced them to be? And can they rise above what they reduce themselves to be?
So
So
thank you for that. That lays it
thank
down.
you. Yeah, it's the
So Olga is who I'd like to look at, her life.
Well, Olga, I can't tell you too much about her, but there are some people that went beyond. So every person, every character in this documentary, every character is a representation of a part of us, a representation of a part of us, some part in us, whether it is the succeed against all odds, slick talking, the fearful, the pushover, the bully. Everybody, everything is represented in these characters, and their actions and their way of being is represented there. Now, um, the people that, so some people went out, some people did not, some people were able to get out, some people were not. And for the most part, people that are people that are there, women, especially women, because the way that it's there, it is like 200 houses of prostitution, this area. Now it's starting to, and much of it is undercover, because in Israel, there is no really, now they're kind of trying to pass a law like in Sweden to incriminate the client and not the girls. Because
Yeah, good idea.
well, yeah, I mean, everything has its own issues because it's not going to stop. It's just going to
No, of
create a
course it's not going
mutation
to.
of that instant
Hmm.
of these instances, and that's what's happening now in Israel. There is no really a law against prostitution, but you cannot. But you cannot buy, you cannot pay for it, and you cannot solicit for prostitution. But there is no really law against prostitution. You understand? So it's kind of like a gray area. So that area, if you see, you've seen some of the women in the film. The area is pretty much holding them in a lockdown because they are in a vicious cycle of the reason they are in drugs is to support their the reason they are in prostitution is to support their drug use.
Okay, now we're getting to it. Okay.
So some of the women are different. So it's supported the drug use, and
Okay.
some women came there because they've been trafficked. And so once you're in that area really, I know many
Yeah.
some of the women that are dead already from the women from the film that you've
Well, this
seen. You
example
know.
is the extreme. So, when you say that in the film, these characters have something in them that represent, like, each person can maybe find themselves in one of these characters. And
Hmm.
so, as we have about 7 or 8 minutes left in our show,
Oh
what I want
yeah.
to do is bring it back to our listeners and viewers and how this concept of if you need to leave the place that you are
Hmm.
for different reasons, if that would be beneficial to you, then kind of, how to do that and how to break free. So, like a message for everyone. And as I was thinking of our, topics for today's show, and this idea has always been something that, I really would like to encourage other people that for me, I did the right thing by leaving. Now, it's not necessarily the place that you're in that is the problem, but for some people it is. And in the work that I do
Hmm.
in viral enology and viral energy is the study of viral energy. And so this is the contagious nature of
Hmm.
energy in social interactions and the environments all around us. And sometimes those environments are our work, our home, and even our town and our city and the place that we are, maybe even the culture of our country. So in the extreme example that you're giving of Olga, and we don't need to know, her specific
Hmm.
life at
Hmm.
all, not specifically her as a person, but I still can't help come back to, and it's an extreme example for sure. So how can we, look at, just a person sitting in any town, anywhere,
Hmm.
wishing to make a change in their life, or sitting in any job,
Yes.
wishing to make a
Yes.
change in their career, in their jobs,
Yes.
in sitting in any relationship. Maybe it's an abusive relationship. So, in terms of that viral energy, that heavy energy, that negativity, for me, it was very much connected to a place because it cut so many strings that weren't the fault of the place at all, but
Hmm.
they were my strings in that place. And so
Hmm.
for me, the soul and spirit that is me, that was the right move for me. I like to say bringing new water in my pond.
Yeah.
So that pond was stagnant, circulate or stagnate. Those are the options. So if you're
Hmm.
not circulating, you're not part
Yes.
of, money has to be in circulation or it
Hmm.
stagnates, it
Hmm.
devalues.
Hmm.
Blood has to circulate or it will stagnate.
Hmm.
Water in a pond,
That's
it
right.
must have a circulation system, some sort of a fountain, or it goes septic, it stagnates. Same with our personal energy, our personal power, our experiences, and our opportunities.
Hmm.
Looking at, bringing it again full circle to the word that you used in terms of, wonderment and bringing that new energy, that new
Yes.
excitement. So let's say you are a person, whatever your example
Yes.
is,
Yes.
and you need to, or you would like to, because it is your wish to, it is your choice and intention to leave that place or that workplace or that relationship. How do you find the ability to do so, the empowerment to do so, or the resources to do so? And for this example, and again, there's just about 4 minutes, but is there a way that someone like Olga, who is a prostitute, who is now doing this, I would assume voluntarily, she was brought into the sex
No, she's in a
trafficking.
different place. She's in a
She's
different
in, well,
place.
she's a, so we could call it a different
But
person
somebody
in a
else, yeah,
similar,
somebody
so
else.
someone else. So
Yeah.
she's moved on. But how, I would imagine that that place, the red light district of Tel Aviv, would not be a healthy atmosphere for I would
Yeah.
say, right, from, so this is like one of those no-brainers. This is not a healthy atmosphere. It'd be better to leave. What is the chains that keep them there? Why can't they be just like the bird that could fly? If you're a bird and winter's coming and you fly south, you get
Yeah.
out like
I'll give
what?
you, I'll
Thank
tell
you.
you
I think
something,
you
for
know what I'm
example.
getting at.
Yeah, I know where you're getting at. For example, I saw an interview with somebody who was an elephant trainer. Okay. And an
I
elephant
have this
trainer.
story in my book.
Oh, was it from,
Yeah, the
but I saw
magic of
that in
viral energy. Yes, and they held the in the
they held a
circus.
stick, right? They
Yes,
held a stick.
that's from this book. That's the magic of viral energy.
So
That's
so
that's great. I
so
love
maybe
that you remembered
so
that
maybe
story.
so maybe so that's where I got it
Yeah,
from.
we're channeling each other. I love
So
that you remember that story. So for the listeners,
yes. So for the when the elephant was a baby, he tied him to a stick. He tied
yes,
the elephant to a stick, and also now when the elephant is fully grown, he still tied him to that small
because
stick.
you stopped trying.
Because you stop trying, because you don't think that you have an option, you don't
You
have
don't
think that
have
you
the
have a
power.
possibility. And what gives you the possibility? um, Environment, for sure, gives you or takes away the possibility. But sometimes to do something that is outside of our nature, something that is outside, it is extreme, that is different, and it doesn't have many
Even
times
quitting
where
your job and starting a different career.
many times, exactly, many times we say to ourselves, oh, when I feel this, I will do this. But that is creating a procrastination and creating a cycle that stays within itself. And sometimes to actually get up and do something without feeling or without thinking that you will think what will happen if you don't do this, just to do this. And it is important to have somebody supports us, but when we don't have that, it is crucial for us to actually do something. One thing, a domino, by the 24th domino, every domino that falls, the domino that you set them up thousands of kilometers, hundreds of kilometers, each domino that hits the other is 50% stronger than its previous one. So technically, by the eighth dominoes, you can tip a person who is almost 2 meters. Technically, by the 24th domino, you can tip off the Pisa Tower. Okay, so let's think about that. If we start one thing that is out of our ordinary, of course, there is an intention, there is a word, there is, it's hard to get into this, but it is actually easy. But it is hard. Just the thought about getting into it is hard. It's just the thought that getting into that place is hard. But we get into that place and we intentionalize. And I ask each one of whoever you're watching, try that. Really feel, be in that place. Imagine how it feels to own it already, how it feels to be in that place, how it feels to already have that freedom, whatever freedom means for you, freedom of judgment, freedom to be in a certain place. How does it feel like in your body? Close your eyes, be in that place, and say out loud, so you can say it out and you can hear it back. I am ready to receive this. I am ready for this. I am ready to meet this person, and feel what it takes to be in that place, to meet that person, to be in that person. And here's one more tip. Abracadabra. Say it after you intentionalize it. Abracadabra is in Aramaic. It means literally, I create as I speak. There are different words that are intentionalized in that have certain energies in it. And so say that. And you will see, but you have to be really clear in your intention and pure in your intention, feeling that. And so, but certain actions sometimes will move you through, will just
Yes.
break that chain. So,
And I want to say
you
on
know,
that, just as we wrap this up, just um, to really support what you've just said in terms of actions, I also like to tell people to think of an elastic band. So if you're
mhm,
sitting there and you want to, quit your job and start a whole new career, and this is really a hard thing, think of the stretch. And that stretch, it hurts at first, but just a little bit of the stretching, that elastic band can never go back to its
Hmm.
original size. As it stretches, you become bigger,
Yeah.
you become more. And at first, as it's stretching, it's a little bit painful. It feels awkward. It's just a little bit,
Yeah.
uncomfortable for us,
Uncomfortable.
that stretch. And those changes are uncomfortable. But to just realize that that pain is the work, it's the medicine. That little bit of uncomfortable
Yeah.
is that medicine working in your life.
Amen.
So,
Amen. You know,
amen.
this is, I will tell you, do you know how a crab grows?
I don't.
You know, a crab goes under the rock. It's a soft animal, right? It goes under the rock,
Uh huh.
away from animals, sheds its shell, and grows a new one. Why? Because it's uncomfortable. If it would be in America, it would take
Oh.
Prozac, Prilosec, whatever, all these kind of things. But it goes under, it shells it off, and it's only when we're uncomfortable that we
Yes.
grow. You
That
know,
pain is the medicine,
it
people.
is.
Thank you
It
so much.
is.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
listening to our spiritual yada.
Yada.
And we will be back next week. And
Next week.
Elon's going to tell you where you can find us on our YouTube and different places.
Our YouTube
Next
channel
week.
is Spiritual Yada, and we will put a link here, and so you can click on it, subscribe to our channel, and ask questions. This is our email also below here. Ask us questions, and you send us an email, and we can probably answer it next time. So
Yes. And for those listening, the email is hello@spiritualyada.com.
yeah,
Hello@spiritualyada.com. And we had wanted to get to some listener questions, and we'll do that next week. I'm Penelope Jean Hayes,
I'm iLan Azoulai.
and
Thank
this
you
is
so much
Spiritual
for being
Yada.
here. Spiritual Yada. See you later.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
This
This
is
is
Spiritual
Spiritual
Yada
Yada with iLan Azoulai.
and Penelope Jean Hayes.